birthright citizenship executive order. You're looking live at the Supreme Court right now. The outcome is a victory for the Trump administration. For more on exactly what this means, we're joined now by Professor David Levine from UC Law, San Francisco. David, this is something we've been diving into since it came out just about 20 minutes ago. Tell us what this means and what this doesn't mean for birthright citizenship.
Okay, sure, Andre. Well, it's a very complicated opinion, very long opinion, and if my count is right, 6 justices felt the need to weigh in on this particular issue. So it is a little bit complicated. But what the administration did is they asked the Supreme Court to take up the sort of abstract issue of, can federal district judges issue an opinion that has what we call nationwide impact, meaning would it bind the federal government everywhere, or would an opinion only protect the individual plaintiffs or the particular plaintiffs in a particular case? And that's what Justice Barrett did. She said the general rule, which absolutely applies, is where we're going to go, and we don't have an exception for these kinds of cases. So this tool, if you think of it as a toolbox, right? So what the Supreme Court said is, district court judges, you thought you had a tool in the toolbox, you don't. That doesn't mean you don't have other tools in the toolbox, but you don't have this one. Now, it happens that the context, of course, in these cases is birthright citizenship. So the cases will all go back to these district courts. I think there's 3 of these cases across the country, and the judges will have to change what they wrote in line with this opinion. And then what then will happen, and what the dissents really were focused on, is what about people who aren't protected by these cases? What happens to all of those people? Are we going to need cases in every one of our 94 federal district courts? And what happens when those opinions, when one court says something and another court says something else? What about that chaos? But Justice Barrett said, well, that's the general rule and we'll live with it. Now, there's answers, but right now, these lucky district court judges are going to have to sort this out when the cases come back to them in a few days.
Let's make clear that nothing is changing right now or for the next 30 days.
Absolutely, nothing is changing. Totally, that's totally true.
Starting on day 31, what do people need to be looking out for?
Well, then the question is going to be, really, were you, were you included in one of these groups or not?
Could this lead to class action?
It could potentially, and these cases hadn't necessarily been framed as class action cases. What class action is, and the opinions do talk about this, class action, again, is one of our familiar tools in the toolbox, and what it is that it's possible in the right case to say, all right, you are not just representing yourselves, but you're representing people who are similarly situated. So a case could be framed as the 3 of us as the individual plaintiffs, and it wouldn't protect anybody else. Or potentially a court could say, I'm going to make you the representatives of a class, and we could frame the class in different ways. That would be a major way out of this. There's details about how that would work. And then the other issue that definitely the Supreme Court flagged is, in some of these cases, the plaintiffs are states. So it's very common that states will band together in these cases, right? So the state of California, of course, has been very active with many of these cases. And it depends on which administration is in. Is it the state of Texas and the state of Alabama doing it? Or is it Massachusetts, Washington, state of Washington, and California, for example, coming together? And the question will be, if the state of California, say, is a plaintiff in one of these cases, does that mean that everybody who is a resident of California will also be protected or not? That remains to be seen. That definitely the Supreme Court justices know that is on the horizon. And so again, I look at these lucky district court judges who are going to have to digest this and figure out what to do. All of this undoubtedly will come back to the Supreme Court. Ultimately, we'll get a decision whether the administration's very controversial issue with regard the executive order with respect to birthright citizenship, I think they will have to resolve that later on. But in terms of this overall point about, is this tool available to district court judges in all kinds of cases? Now we know the answer is no. Go to other tools in the toolbox. Not that screwdriver. You might have another screwdriver in the toolbox, or maybe a hammer will do the job. But the district court judges will have to adjust to this. And guess what? I'm ripping up my syllabus because I teach this stuff.
Right.
So we're making some changes there as well.
All right. Before you head back to the university, we have you for a little bit more on Mornings on 2. I appreciate your time, your expertise. We'll see you again in just a few minutes.